Hi everyone, it's Meg. Today we're going to be talking about a case a little bit more modern than the Black Dahlia, which was our last case. It starts in 1996 and ends in this year of 2021. Like I said in my last video, I'm going to be trying to do cases in my area, which is of Southern California. This case just had me shaking my head the entire time and extremely worried because it's a very relatable crime for college students and students in general. So without further ado, let's get into the disappearance and murder of Kristin Smart. So Kristin Smart was born on February 20, 1977 in West Germany to Stan and Denise Smart, who were both teachers for children of American military personnel. She is the oldest of one brother and one sister, and they decided to move to Stockton, California, where she attended and graduated at Lincoln High School in 1995. Kristin was described as had an adventurous personality, and she really believed in her dreams. Her smile was said to lit up the room, and her hugs were just contagious. So Kristin's last summer on Earth was working her dream job, where she worked as a lifeguard and camp counselor at Camp Mokulia, Hawaii. I pronounced that wrong. Then decided to enroll into California Polytech State University in San Luis Obispo, where she was a freshman at 19 years old. On May 25th of 1996, which was Memorial Day weekend, her friends dropped her off at an off-campus birthday party, which they decided they didn't want to attend to. And so she went to the party, had a great time, and two students, Cheryl Anderson and Tim Davis, found her laying on the front yard of where the party was being held at 2 a.m. As they were helping her back to the dorm, a third student known as Paul Flores joined the group to help them. So Tim was the first one who left the group because he lived off campus and he drove to the party and it was already late, so he just kind of wanted to, these two students got Kristin, so he left and left them with Cheryl and Paul. Cheryl left next because she lived in the Sierra Madre Hall part of the dormitory, while Paul lived closer to where Kristin was. So Cheryl left Paul and Kristin alone. Paul claims that he walked her to her dorm and that's it. That's what he told investigators, and that's when they parted ways. But Paul was actually the last person to see Kristin. On May 27th, Denise Smart, which was Kristin's mother, received a call from the police and said Kristin has not been seen all weekend and was wondering if Kristin was with her mother. Now, I heard two sources or multiple sources saying two different things. One source, I heard that the police actually didn't contact her mother, and a worried student and friend of Kristin called the campus police, who decided not to do anything about it. And then the worried student called the mom, who ended up contacting the police and was like, "Why aren't you doing anything?" The student said they haven't seen my daughter for about a week. Either way, the police decided not to do anything until a couple days after. And according to a lot of police sources, the first 24 to 48 hours is the most vital and important of an investigation. That's when the evidence, fingerprints, possible blood is the freshest, and that's the best time to catch the perpetrator. The police assumed she was off having friends on an unannounced vacation. It was Memorial Day weekend. I know a lot of college students, they like to party, drink, and just have fun. But Kristin didn't seem like the type to just go unannounced without contacting her friends or family. On May 28th, an official missing persons report was filed, and in June, the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office took over the Cal Poly Police as lead investigators. Now, as the search began, the police went through the different parts of the Cal Poly campus. They went on horseback. They also took some helicopters to see a different angle. They searched her dorm, which was located in Muir Hall of Cal Poly, where they found her wallet and reminders to turn in her homework. Cadaver dogs were sent to Paul Flores' dorm, and they did smell human decay traces. Now, this is just when I started to shake my head during the case, because although Paul Flores was named the main person of interest early on in the case, and though he had denied any involvement, it's not every day that you have smells of rotten and decaying flesh in your dorm room. And the police waited 6 whole days before interviewing him, even though he was the last person to see her late at night. There were many missing person posters and billboards offering rewards on roads and very busy public places, just to keep any line open if anyone's seen or heard anything about Kristin. And 2 days after this, Paul went to the Arroyo Grande police department due to an outstanding DUI warrant. He got his mugshot taken, and he had a black eye in the mugshot. And when he was asked about why he has a black eye, he changed his story 3 times. I don't know what the story is, but to change it 3 times, that you just are obviously not getting the story straight. Now, Paul is actually known by all of the Cal Poly girls to be a creeper, and they actually had like an inside joke where they nicknamed him Chester the Molester, as he was known for groping girls. In October of 1996, Mary Lassiter, who was renting Paul Flores' mother's house, found an earring in the driveway, and when she picked it up and looked at it, and she compared it to Kristin's picture on a giant billboard on one of the roads, it was the earring she was wearing. And that's important, right? The police lost it. They decided it wasn't evidence and it wasn't very important, and they just lost it in the investigation. And that just, when I was doing this case, I was just like this the entire time. It's, how do you lose evidence? In October, Paul was brought before the jury, but no charges were filed. Weeks later, Kristin's parents hired James Murphy, who filed a $40 million wrongful death lawsuit on Paul Flores. And on November of 1997, Flores was deposed by the civil suit, and he was extremely quiet, wouldn't say a thing except confirm his name. And he actually invoked the Fifth Amendment 27 times, which the Fifth Amendment states that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of the law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Now, in 2002, her family declared her legally dead, but the search did still continue. Now, in 2011, thank God, there's a new sheriff in town. His name's Ian Parkinson, and he was sworn to office for the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff. And this is where they start getting evidence, getting stuff done, and they start doing Kristin's case justice. Since he was sworn to office, they dug up the hillsides, they searched home and properties, all of the Flores' family named properties. They collected evidence. They seized Paul's computers, monitored his cell phone, text message, and found witnesses. Now, this is my own opinion, but I believe if you have nothing to hide, there is no problem in the police searching my stuff if I'm a main person of interest. You know, as long as they're not trashing it and pushing my stuff over, they could search it. And if I have nothing to hide, then I have nothing to hide. Paul did have stuff to hide, and we will talk about that later in the case. A statement to CBS News of Cal Poly said that our hearts continue to go out to the Kristin Smart's family. We cannot imagine the pain they have endured over the years, and we hope this investigation leads to answers. We are cooperating fully with the San Luis Obispo Sheriff's Office. In 2016, Earth Movers, every time I hear Earth Movers when I'm reading this case, it just makes me think of Avatar, like earthbenders, but they're actually people who just carve into the soil to see anything like remains or any clothing items or just like evidence they could find. But they carved into the soil around the San Luis Obispo city, and they did not find Kristin's remains, and her remains still have not been found to this day. In 2011 to 2020, there were 18 search warrants. They submitted 37 items for DNA testing and recovered 140 new items of evidence, and they conducted 91 interviews ever since this new sheriff was sworn to office. Going back to the billboards that I said were going to be very important later on in the case, in 2019, a popular true crime podcast, which you guys probably might have heard of, Your Own Backyard, hosted by Chris Lambert, who spent his entire life being haunted by the billboard he saw passing by Highway 101. it makes sense. If you, like, knew the area and you were raised there and grew up there and you saw all these missing person or murder, you know, photos on the billboards, I'd be pretty haunted as well.
The question is not just how did Kristin Smart die, but what happened to her body after she died and how did nobody see it? I've assembled a very comprehensive timeline of dates from the time Kristin went missing up until today, what was going on in the investigation, and this is based off of newspaper reports. This is based off of the Smart family's own notebook that they would keep next to their phone, and every time they got a tip or a lead or a call from the sheriff, they would take detailed notes about exactly what was going on in the investigation.
Chris Lambert has been an absolute blessing for the family. He has re-energized the case in a way that has been missing for a long time.
As a lover of true crime, he said that it wasn't that the crime was interesting to him, it was that it was a local story in his area, and he said, how are we not all still talking about this every day until she's found? And he urged his viewers to not let Kristin's story die. Now, this is just amazing because Sheriff Ian said that his podcast and his words actually moved the investigation forward immensely and took it from a local story to an international one. So props to him. He really helped Kristin, and I'm sure his family is very happy that he, you know, ended up publishing this podcast. Kristin's mother said that we felt like the stars aligned when the podcast aired and that it encouraged the previously reluctant to come forward. This obviously gave law enforcement new leads and to follow and connect with what they already were holding close. Now, I can't stress how much this podcast really pushed this investigation forward. We'll see later on in the case how much of an impact it really did have. Now, in March 2021, investigators sent out cadaver dogs and ground-penetrating radar to search Ruben Flores, which was Paul Flores' father, and they searched his property in Arroyo Grande. Excuse the lighting. It's really angelic. It's just the sun coming through my window. I'm literally just waiting and sitting here and it's getting worse. Okay, I fixed it. So the next part is a little bit risque. So if you're not of age, skip to this part. So the March 2021 investigation and the February 4th, 2020 investigation, where they searched Paul Flores' San Pedro home, revealed footage of him having sex with incapacitated women. They also uncovered videos in a folder labeled Practice that featured women wearing gag balls in other fetish positions. He was also in the possession of having tramadol and Flexeril, which was known as the date rape drugs. They also had a phone tap from January 2020 from Paul's mother that said, "The only thing I need you to do is to start listening to the podcast. I would need you to listen to everything that they were so you could punch holes in it. Whenever we can punch holes, maybe we can't. You're the only one who could tell me." And she was referencing Lambert's Your Own Backyard podcast. Now, on March 15th, they also showed the radar revealed soil disturbances, meaning the soil was either dug up or moved around under the deck, as well as 4 soil samples that tested positive for human blood. There was also fibers consistent with the color clothing that Kristin was last seen wearing. Fibers meaning like little threads or pieces, very small pieces of her clothing. On April 13th, 2020, Paul was taken into custody and charged with first-degree murder and is accused of killing Kristin while attempting to rape her 25 years later into the case. Ruben Flores was arrested the same day for being an accessory to the crime. Paul Flores is in jail with no bail, while Ruben Flores is at a bail of... He used to be at a bail of $250,000, but it was lowered to $50,000, which I don't think it should have been lowered.
This afternoon to announce the arrest of Paul Flores for the murder of Kristin Smart and the arrest of his father, Ruben Flores, as an accessory to the murder.
The day after the two were arrested, Dan Dow, which was the San Luis Obispo County District Attorney said Paul Flores caused the death of Kristin while in commissions of attempted rape. On April 19th of 2021, Paul pleaded not guilty to the rape and murder of Kristin. Paul was not granted bail by Judge Craig B. Van Ruyen and said that his release could result in great bodily harm to other people. Now, as of March 2021, the police department did put a gag order in place. Gag order meaning that you just can't talk about the case if you are part of the case, so if you're a detective or police, and if you do, I believe like there's a 2-week suspension on your job or something. It's dependent on different police departments. But Sheriff Ian did confirm to the public that physical evidence is linked to Kristin's whereabouts. Like we said, we never found her body. And Kristin's attorney claims that her remains were buried at Paul Flores' father's property. They have a lot of properties.
Forensic physical evidence was located, and yes, we believe it's linked to Kristin.
It's my understanding that law enforcement believes that after the murder of Kristin Smart, the body was likely moved to Ruben Flores' house, and that the body remained there for a number of years, and that likely in February of last year that the body was moved. Now, where the body was moved, I'm not sure.
On July 14th, Paul and Ruben appeared to the San Luis Obispo Superior Court. Paul and Ruben's attorney said that there is no evidence of a sex crime in the charged crime itself. Proof of the LA charges cannot act as a substitute for the case, meaning that these two incidences cannot be linked together, even if the two rape charges were true. However, I feel like there should be charges on him having videos of him raping incapacitated girls, or that he had possession of drugs. Additionally, on July 15th, previously sealed documents related to the case became public that explains the rape charges that Paul was being accused of. The documents included 2 claims from 2011 and 2017 that Paul raped 2 women while they were drunk in San Pedro. It also expounds on other alleged rapes and as well as like unwanted sexual advantages. Now, this is where the podcast really pushed the case forward, where people were coming out due to the podcaster urging people to keep the search for Kristin alive. On August 3rd, evidentiary hearings with witnesses testifying in front of the Superior Court judge about Flores' intentions with Kristin. On the second day of the hearing, a close friend from Cal Poly, Steve Fleming, tells the court that Paul had interacted with Kristin before the party. He says that he was lurking in the lobby of Smart's dorm at 1 a.m. and at a separate time, he saw a man in Kristin's dorm room and said that Kristin did seem uncomfortable, but she was too nice to ask him to leave. He said, everyone knows Paul Flores was creepy. A lot of women felt uncomfortable around him and he was not welcome. Another witness known as Jennifer Hudson came forward and she said when she was 17 years old, Flores had laughingly told her that he had taken care of Kristin, but she didn't want to come forward due to her being scared for her own life, and she said, I was afraid I'd end up missing or buried someplace. She also added that Paul said that he put Kristin under some random skateboard ramp in Arroyo Grande. Now, the entire time he was telling Jennifer his story, he joked and had a smirk on his face, and Jennifer says that anyone would have been terrified if they had heard it. Now, Paul's defense questioned Jennifer's use of drugs at the time, but Jennifer said she was not on drugs when Paul gave her this information. Now, my face when I heard this next part was just no words. But Paul's defense basically said that it was unfair that Paul was deemed the only suspect very early on, and they didn't look into multiple other potential suspects. And he said there's no evidence of a murder and no evidence of a rape. There's a whole ton of evidence, and it's pretty obvious it's him. And I get that Paul hired this defense attorney to do the best job to keeping him out of jail, but I'm sorry, there's a whole ton of evidence. Now, that's all I have in the case. Kristin's family keeps the memory of her alive through the Kristin Smart scholarship whose goal is to help young women pursue their hopes, ambitions, and impact in the world the same way Kristin would have hoped for. There's also the Kristin Smart Campus Security Act, which is a state legislation which was a bill that requires all public colleges and publicly funded educational institutions to have security services and make agreements with local police departments about reporting cases.
Mom's turning point constructively in this case became a desire to have a legacy for my sister, my late sister Kristin, and to channel the positive energy into creating that legacy. What we came up with was a scholarship fund for those individuals who might not have the ability to go to a university, pursue a degree in either law enforcement or architecture, and the goal being to create an endowment, something that lives on into perpetuity. I think is really a great way to simply say, Kristin might not be able to do it, but how do we allow others to live what she wasn't able to?
And I'm blessed, but my college that I went to, also in the area, has security all around, and there's actually these giant poles that has like a button to press all around the campus, very close together. So if we're walking at nighttime, these poles are lit up, and at any time I could go up to it, hit the button, and the campus police will come to help me out. The family's statement after the judge's ruling, they said, "Yesterday was a very good day, and we wanted to take this opportunity to thank all of Kristin's supporters in San Luis Obispo and beyond. So many people have played such an important role over the past 25 years. We are humbled by the amazing support and generosity we have received. We want to especially thank the District Attorney's Office for their relentless efforts." They also said, "Our family has also known that this was going to be a long, difficult, and emotional journey. We're now one step closer to justice for Kristin. She and all who have worked so hard towards this day deserve nothing less." My heart goes out to Kristin's family and all that they had to endure. If you'd like to know a little bit more about Kristin and who she was, I'll enter the link here at kristinsmart.org. I'll also put it in the description of this video. Thanks for watching our second case, and hope you tune in for the next one. Please thumbs up and subscribe, and thanks for watching.